The galactic concordance had, over the course of 17,000 standard cycles, perfected the art of warfare, which is to say they had made it so monumentally tedious that most species would rather cede entire star systems than actually go through with it. There were forms to file, tribunals to convene, impact assessments to commission, and a waiting period that made purchasing a plasma rifle on a backwater colony look like an impulse buy. War, in the enlightened age of the concordance, was less about explosions and more about exhaustion. Into this sophisticated system of bureaucratic violence stumbled humanity, a species that had only recently figured out faster-than-light travel, and still thought diplomatic immunity meant you could park wherever you wanted. The human in question was named Adrian Holt, though he preferred to be called the guy who really should have read the fine print. He had been selected as Earth's representative to the concordance, not through any particular merit, but because he had shown up to the right government office on the right day, and everyone else had called in sick. His qualifications included a bachelor's degree in hospitality management, conversational Mandarin, and an impressive ability to nod thoughtfully while having absolutely no idea what was happening. On the morning that would later be designated as First Contact Incident Report 47, Adrian was nursing what humans colloquially called a hangover from hell, and what the concordance medical database would classify as voluntary neural impairment of catastrophic proportion. He had spent the previous evening at a reception with the ambassador from Tellus Prime, species whose idea of diplomatic wine tasting involved liquids that could strip paint from holes. His office, a modest cube aboard Concordance Station Theta, was decorated with exactly 3 items: a potted plant that was definitely dead, a framed picture of Earth that came with the frame, and a desk projection system that he had never quite figured out how to do. The screen currently displayed approximately 400 documents awaiting his signature, each written in Concordance Standard, which looked less like a language and more like someone had sneezed geometry. Adrian's assistant, an AI protocol droid, designated as Unit 7743 but whom Adrian called Buddy because he couldn't remember numbers before his second coffee, materialized as a shimmering hologram. "Good morning, Ambassador. You have 417 pending documents requiring authorization. 17 more since yesterday?" Adrian squinted at the screen, which seemed to be vibrating, though that might have been his eyeballs. "What are they all for?" "Various routine matters, trade agreements, station maintenance approvals, territorial dispute acknowledgements, declaration of total war against the Yeneth Collective, cultural exchange programs, and a parking citation." Adrian was already signing, his finger dancing across the haptic interface in what he believed was a sophisticated diplomatic gesture, but was actually more like someone swatting at invisible flies. "Yeah? Sure. Whatever. Process them all." All documents signed and submitted to Concordance Central Processing. Buddy vanished, leaving Adrian alone with his headache, and the growing suspicion that he had forgotten something important. This feeling would prove to be extraordinarily accurate. Approximately 4 hours later, after Adrian had consumed enough coffee to fuel a small spacecraft, Buddy reappeared with what could only be described as urgency, if holograms could express urgency, which this one definitely could. "Ambassador Holt, we have a situation." "Is it the parking citation? Because I maintain that spot was ambiguous." "You have declared war on the Yeneth Collective." Adrian blinked, then blinked again. "I've what?" "Declared war. Document 3. You signed the formal declaration of territorial dispute resolution through sanctioned conflict. It was between a trade agreement for agricultural supplements and the cultural exchange program. That was a declaration of war. It said territorial dispute resolution. War is how the concordance resolves territorial disputes. Ambassador, it has been this way for 17,000 cycles. Adrian felt his stomach drop approximately 3 floors. Can we unsign it? The Yeneth have already acknowledged receipt. They are, as per their cultural standards, honored to engage in sanctioned combat. They have begun their traditional pre-war ceremonies, which will conclude in 48 standard hours. Okay. Adrian stood up, immediately regretted it, sat back down. What's the dispute even about? Buddy projected a holographic star chart. A tiny yellow circle appeared, highlighting a region of space that looked entirely unremarkable. Mining rights to the Helios 7 asteroid field. Earth submitted a claim 17 months ago. So did the Yeneth Collect. As both parties have refused arbitration, Concordance Protocol demands resolution through champion combat. Champion combat. Yes, Ambassador. Each side selects a representative. They engage in 3 trials. The victor's species receives mining rights. It is all very civilized. Adrian put his head in his hands. Can I just give them the asteroid field? Concordance Honor Code forbids withdrawal once war has been declared. Such an action would mark humanity as oath breakers, and result in complete embargo from all concordance trade, travel and diplomatic relations. So I either fight a war, or humanity gets kicked out of space civilization. Correct, Ambassador. Though I should note that technically, you specifically must organize Earth's military response, as you are the signatory of. Adrian looked up at the hologram with the expression of a man who had just realized he had accidentally adopted a very expensive, very dangerous pet. What do you know about the Yeneth? The Yeneth Collective is a hive species of insectoid origin. They value honor, precision, and contractual obligations above all else. They have never lost a sanctioned war in 4,000 cycles. Their champions are bred from birth for ritual combat. They stand approximately 12 feet tall, possess exoskeletons capable of deflecting small arms fire, and can lift approximately 4,000 pounds without strain. And I have to fight them. You must provide a champion to fight them. Yet, Adrian sat in silence for a long moment. The kind of silence that occurs when a person's brain is desperately trying to find an escape route and coming up empty. Finally, he spoke. Get me Earth's military command. Now. Already attempted, Ambassador. They believe this is a prank call. 3 separate generals hung up on me. One suggested you seek psychological help. Perfect. Just perfect. Adrian stood again, this time successfully remaining vertical. So I've started a war. I can't stop the war, and nobody believes the war is real. Essentially accurate, Ambassador. And if I don't find someone to fight a 12-foot-tall warrior bug, humanity loses all access to galactic civilization. Also accurate. Adrian looked out the viewport at the vast expanse of space beyond, where millions of species went about their business, blissfully unaware that humanity's entire cosmic reputation now rested on one hungover diplomat's ability to find someone stupid enough to fight an unbeatable alien champion. I need to make a phone call, he said quietly. May I suggest starting with anyone who owes you a favor? I don't have any friends who owe me favors, buddy. Then may I suggest anyone with substantial debt and poor judgment? Adrian pulled up his personal communication device and scrolled through his contacts, looking for someone desperate, capable, and dumb enough to say yes to what he was about to propose. His finger stopped on one name, a person he had not spoken to in 5 years, someone who had once told him that the worst decision he had ever made was becoming Adrian's roommate in college. He pressed call. Somewhere on a cargo hauler 3 systems away, a former Marine was about to have a very bad day become substantially worse. The cargo hauler Penelope's fortune smelled like recycled air, diesel fuel that had no business being in space, and what the captain generously called imported cheese but was definitely something that had died in the ventilation system 3 months ago. In the cargo bay, surrounded by containers of mining equipment bound for some colony that probably didn't want them, a man named Ethan Wu was enjoying his lunch break by staring at a wall and questioning his life choices. Ethan was 42, looked 55, and felt approximately 300. He had spent 12 years in the Colonial Marine Corps, earned more medals than he could remember, fought in conflicts he wasn't supposed to talk about, and retired with the kind of back pain that made weather forecasting a superpower. Now he hauled cargo for a Venusian shipping company that paid him just enough to afford instant noodles and the occasional bottle of something that claimed to be whiskey. His personal communicator buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Still ignored. On the third buzz, he sighed, pulled it from his pocket, and saw a name he had not expected to see again in this lifetime. You have got to be kidding me, he muttered, then answered. Adrian, if you're calling to invite me to another reunion, I'm still in space and still not interested. Ethan, hey, how are you, man? Adrian's voice had that particular quality of forced cheerfulness that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Because you only call me when you've done something. Last time you needed bail money in Prague. Time before that you needed someone to confirm you were at a wedding you definitely were not at. What is it this time? There was a pause, the kind that carries weight across 3 solar systems. How do you feel about fighting aliens? Ethan closed his eyes. Pass. I haven't told you the details yet. Don't need details. The answer is pass. There's money involved. A lot of money. How much money? Signing bonus of 50,000 credits. Win bonus of 200,000, plus full diplomatic immunity for life, and a pension from the Concordance. Ethan sat up straighter. 50,000 credits would pay off the loan on his cargo hauler license. 200,000 would let him retire to somewhere with actual gravity and food that didn't come in too. What's the catch? You have to fight a 12-foot-tall insect warrior in ritual combat to prevent humanity from being expelled from galactic civilization because I accidentally declared war while hungover. Ethan was quiet for a moment, processing this information through the filter of having known Adrian Holt for 20 years. That tracks actually. So you'll do it. I didn't say that. Explain the part about ritual combat. Adrian proceeded to explain, in increasingly frantic detail, the exact nature of the mess he had created. The Yenith Collective, the honor-bound warrior tradition, the 3 trials, the fact that no species had beaten them in 4,000 years. So you need someone to fight an unbeatable alien champion in 3 contests they've specifically bred warriors to win, or humanity gets kicked out of space. When you put it like that, it sounds bad. Adrian, it is bad. But you're the best fighter I know. I'm the only fighter you know, and I've been out of the Corps for 8 years. I haul mining equipment. My biggest concern yesterday was whether a shipping container was going to come loose during a gravity turn. Ethan, please, I'm begging. Earth's entire diplomatic corps thinks this is a joke. I have 48 hours to produce a champion or we're done. You're my only option. Ethan looked around the cargo bay, at the rusted containers and flickering lights, at the promising future of hauling other people's garbage across the galaxy until his back finally gave out complete. He thought about his studio apartment on Mars that was technically a converted storage closet. He thought about 50,000 credits. The signing bonus is guaranteed, even if I lose. Guaranteed. Concordance contract. They take that stuff seriously, and I don't have to be polite about it. You can be as impolite as you want. Ethan Wu, decorated veteran and professional bad decision maker, made another one. Fine, I'm in, but you're buying the drinks afterward. Deal. Oh, thank God. Okay, I'm sending you the coordinates. The combat is being held at Concordance Station Theta. Neutral ground. How fast can you get here? 36 hours if I push the engines. Perfect. I'll have everything ready. Ethan, seriously, thank you. You're saving humanity. I'm saving your ass from a bureaucratic nightmare. There's a difference. He ended the call, stood up and walked toward the bridge, his knees making sounds like a drawer full of silverware falling downstairs. The captain, a Venusian with 3 eyes and a profound distrust of humans, looked up from the navigation console. You quitting? Emergency leave. Family situation. You don't have family. My idiot friend counts. When you coming back? Ethan thought about the 200,000 credit win bonus, which would require beating an unbeatable alien warrior. Probably never, honestly. Good luck, the captain said, in the tone of someone who expected to read about this in the obituary. 36 hours later, Ethan Wu stepped off a transport shuttle, onto Concordance Station Theta, wearing his only clean shirt, carrying a duffel bag containing exactly 3 possessions he cared about, and already regretting his life choices. Adrian met him at the dock, looking significantly worse than he had sounded on the phone. You look terrible, Ethan said. I've been awake for 2 days preparing your briefing documents. You look exactly the same as 8 years ago. That's not a compliment. Where's this warrior I'm supposed to fight? Arena level, 3 floors down. The Yenith delegation arrived this morning. Ethan, I should warn you, he's impressive. 12 feet tall, exoskeleton, bred for combat. You mentioned. Seeing it is different than hearing about it. They took a lift down through the station, passing various species going about their business, none of whom seemed particularly concerned that a war was about to be decided. The arena level opened onto a massive circular chamber, with viewing platforms rising up the wall. In the center, standing absolutely motionless, was the Yenith champion. 12 feet was accurate.
So was the exoskeleton, which gleamed like polished obsidian. 4 arms, each ending in what looked like natural weapons evolution, had spent millions of years perfecting. Eyes that didn't blink, mandibles that suggested chewing through titanium was a light snack. Ethan stared at it for a long moment, then turned to Adrian. "Where's the bar?"
The bar was called the neutral ground, which Ethan appreciated for its honesty if nothing else. It was located on the observation deck overlooking the arena, which he appreciated significantly less. Nothing improved pre-combat jitters like watching your opponent practice lifting weights that could crush a small vehicle. Adrian sat across from him, surrounded by data tablets displaying information about the 3 trials. Ethan was on his second beer and had not looked at a single tablet. "You need to review the trial parameters," Adrian said, pushing a tablet closer. "I need to not think about how I'm going to die for the next hour." Ethan took another drink. "Tell me about the trials." Adrian sighed and pulled up a holographic display that materialized above the table, causing a nearby Teluvian diplomat to spill their drink. "Trial 1 is strength. You and the champion will be required to move weighted spheres across a designated distance. The spheres increase in mass with each successful transport. First to fail loses the trial. So I lose trial 1. Got it. Next. You can't just give up on trial 1. Adrian, look at that thing. Then look at me. I'm 42 years old, and my back goes out when I sneeze too hard. I'm not outlifting a creature that looks like evolution's idea of a tank. Fine. Okay, trial 2. Adrian swiped to the next display. Strategic combat simulation. It's essentially a 3-dimensional tactical game. You command virtual forces against the champion's forces. First to achieve victory conditions wins. I'm decent at strategy games. What are the victory conditions? Depends on the randomized scenario. Could be territorial control, resource acquisition, or total elimination of opposing forces, until someone wins or both parties agree to a stalemate, which counts as a mutual loss. Ethan nodded slowly, the gears in his head beginning to turn in ways Adrian recognized as dangerous. In Trial 3, endurance test in a hostile environment simulator. Both participants enter a chamber that cycles through various hazardous conditions. Last one standing wins. You can't leave the chamber voluntarily or you forfeit. What kind of hazardous conditions? Extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, high gravity, radiation exposure, that sort of thing. All within non-lethal parameters. Obviously, the concordance frowns on actual death in ritual combat. How considerate. Ethan finished his beer and stood. When do we start? 30 minutes. Are you sure you don't want to review the detailed breakdown? There are optimal strategies for each trial, recommended approaches based on species physiology. Adrian, I've been in actual combat. I've been shot at by people who really wanted me dead, not people following honor protocols. I think I can handle 3 games against an oversized cricket. That's incredibly disrespectful to the Yeneth. Good. They made their way down to the arena floor, where a crowd had gathered. Apparently word had spread that humanity's champion was a single cargo hauler in his 40s, and the galaxy had decided this was entertainment worth watching. Ethan could see beings from dozens of species in the viewing platforms, and he was fairly certain he heard someone taking bets. The Concordance Arbiter, a floating crystalline entity that served as referee, chimed with what the translation software assured him was a formal greeting. Welcome, champions. The trials will now commence. Do you understand the terms of engagement? The Yeneth champion clicked and chittered, which translated to a formal acceptance. Ethan just nodded. Yeah, sure. The Arbiter seemed uncertain about this response but continued. Trial 1. Strength. The weighted spheres will materialize. Transport them to the designated zone. Failure to transport a sphere results in elimination from the trial. 3 massive spheres materialized, each one hovering slightly above the arena floor on anti-gravity pads that would deactivate once touched. The first sphere looked manageable. The second looked heavy. The third looked like it had been designed by someone who hated joints. The Yeneth champion approached the first sphere, deactivated the pad with a touch, and lifted it as though it were made of foam. 4 arms provided excellent weight distribution. The creature carried it smoothly across the arena, and placed it in the glowing designated zone with the precision of a clockmaker. Ethan approached his first sphere, touched it, and immediately felt the weight settle. Heavy, but manageable. He lifted with his legs, not his back, because his physical therapist's voice lived rent-free in his head. He carried it across the arena in a walk that suggested mild inconvenience, rather than athletic prowess, and dropped it in the zone with a clang. The second sphere materialized. The Yeneth champion repeated its performance, flawless and efficient. Ethan lifted his second sphere and made it approximately 6 feet before his arms informed him they were filing a formal complaint. He adjusted his grip, muttered something about poor life choices, and completed the journey in what could generously be called a controlled stumble. The third sphere materialized. This one was clearly designed to end the trial. The Yeneth champion approached it with confidence, lifted, and carried it across the arena with only slight strain visible in its movements. Ethan looked at his sphere, then at the distance to the zone, then back at the sphere. He touched it. The weight was extraordinary. He lifted and made it exactly 3 steps before his back issued a formal veto. He set it down carefully, because dropping it would probably break the floor and his legs. "I'm out," he announced. "He wins trial 1. The crowd murmured. The arbiter chimed confirmation. The Yeneth champion stood perfectly still, radiating what might have been satisfaction or might have been gas. Ethan couldn't tell. Adrian appeared at the arena's edge, looking panicked. "You didn't even try." "I tried 3 steps. 3 very painful steps." Ethan stretched his back, which made concerning noises. On to trial 2. The arena floor reconfigured, panels sliding away to reveal a central control platform with 2 tactical stations facing each other. Holographic displays materialized, showing a 3-dimensional battlefield with terrain features, resource points, and unit deployment zones. The arbiter chimed again. Trial 2, Strategic Combat. Scenario, Resource Acquisition. Victory condition, control all 3 resource points for 30 consecutive seconds or eliminate all opposing forces. You may begin deployment. The Yeneth champion moved to its station with purpose, appendages already dancing across the holographic controls, deploying units with the efficiency of someone who had done this thousands of times. Ethan approached his station, looked at the bewildering array of unit types, terrain advantages and tactical options, and made a decision. He deployed every single unit he had directly at the center resource point in one massive blob. The Yeneth champion's strategy was elegant. Flanking maneuvers, defensive positions, resource management, combined arms tactics that would have made military historians weep with joy. Ethan's strategy was to move his entire army forward, while making sound effects. "What are you doing?" Adrian hissed from the viewing area. "Winning," Ethan replied, though he was absolutely not winning. His forces were being systematically dismantled by superior tactics. The Yeneth champion was demonstrating exactly why its species had never lost. Then Ethan started talking. "Nice flanking maneuver there, big guy. Really textbook. Your mother teach you that? Oh wait, you're a hive species. You probably have like 1,000 mothers. Must be hell on Mother's Day. Do you even celebrate Mother's Day? Probably not, right? You seem like the type to forget holidays." The Yeneth champion paused, mandibles twitching. "In that defensive position. Wow, really solid. Almost like you've done this before. Have you done this before? Is this all you do? Just sit around playing tactical games? That's kind of sad, honestly. I haul cargo and even I have hobby." The champion's units faltered slightly, the previously perfect tactical precision showing microscopic hesitation. "I'm just saying, if I spent 4,000 years breeding warriors to play strategy games, I'd probably want them to be better at this. You're good, don't get me wrong, but you're not great. Great would be winning faster. This is taking forever. I've got a lunch reservation." The Yeneth champion made a sound that the translator struggled with. Something between outrage and confusion. "Is that your best unit? That thing there looks kinda wimpy. I bet I could take it in a fight. Not this fight, obviously. This is a simulation, but like a real fight. You think you could beat me in a real fight? Because I've seen some things, buddy. I've wrestled Martian sand sharks. You ever wrestle a Martian sand shark? They've got teeth where they shouldn't have teeth." The arbiter suddenly chimed with what sounded like alarm. "Human champion, your verbal commentary is causing psychological distress to your opponent. This may constitute a violation of combat protocol." "I'm just making conversation," Ethan said innocently, while his forces continued to be destroyed. Is conversation illegal? That seems harsh. The Concordance officials convened in a hurried conference at the edge of the arena, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that the translation software rendered as overlapping arguments about whether talking during combat constituted psychological warfare or just incredibly poor sportsmanship. Ethan continued moving his dwindling forces around the battlefield while providing running commentary on the Yeneth champion's tactical decisions. His mother's probable disappointment in whether insectoid species experienced existential dread. The champion had stopped moving entirely, its mandibles clicking in what appeared to be either rage or a system crash. After 5 minutes of deliberation, the arbiter returned. The human champion's verbal tactics, while unconventional and deeply irritating, do not technically violate combat protocols. The trial will continue. Excellent, Ethan said. Hey, big guy, they said I can keep talking. Where were we? Oh right. I was asking if you've ever considered that maybe ritual combat is just a way for your species to avoid dealing with actual diplomatic solutions. Like, have you thought about therapy? The galaxy has therapists now. I know a good one on Titan. The Yeneth champion's forces began making errors. Small ones at first, then increasingly catastrophic ones. Units moved to wrong positions. Defensive lines collapsed. The systematic dismantling of Ethan's forces slowed to a confused crawl. Ethan, despite having perhaps 12 units remaining compared to the champion's 40, somehow managed to capture one resource point through sheer chaos. Oh, would you look at that? I got a point. Is that good? That seems good. You should probably stop me. Or don't. I'm fine either way. The champion's entire tactical display flickered as it attempted to reorganize, but every move was now second-guessed, every decision questioned by its own overtaxed processing. Ethan captured a second resource point, mostly because the champion's units had forgotten what they were doing. 2 points now. Just need one more. You know what's funny? I'm not even good at this game. I'm just really annoying. My ex-wife told me that. Well, one of my ex-wives. The second one just stopped talking to me entirely, which honestly was more effective. The Yeneth champion made a sound like a whistling kettle achieving consciousness, and its remaining forces scattered in complete disarray. Ethan's handful of units stumbled into the third resource point. The arbiter chimed. Human champion controls all 3 resource points. Beginning countdown. No, the champion's translator finally produced coherent speech. This is not honorable combat. This is annoying, Ethan offered. Yeah, I get that a lot. The 30-second countdown complete. The arbiter confirmed Ethan's victory in Trial 2, and the viewing platforms erupted in confused chattering. Several species were arguing about whether they had just witnessed brilliant psychological tactics, or the galaxy's most embarrassing military engagement. Adrian appeared at Ethan's side, looking like someone who had just watched physics stop working. How did you do that? I talked. He listened. He shouldn't have listened. Ethan cracked his knuckles. 1 trial each. Time for the tiebreak. The Yeneth champion was surrounded by its delegation, all of them clicking and chittering in what appeared to be either encouragement or criticism. When it returned to the arena floor, it moved with renewed purpose, mandibles set in what might have been determination. The arbiter chimed. Trial 3. Endurance. Both champions will enter the environmental chamber. Conditions will cycle every 5 minutes. You may not leave voluntarily. Last to remain conscious wins. Prepare yourself. 2 doors opened in the arena floor, revealing a chamber roughly 50 feet in diameter with walls that looked disturbingly medical. Ethan and the Yeneth champion descended into it, taking positions on opposite sides. The doors sealed. The arbiter's voice echoed through speakers. First environment. Extreme heat. Beginning now. The temperature spiked immediately, hitting what Ethan's suit sensors told him was approximately 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Uncomfortable, but he had worked on cargo haulers with broken climate control in the outer system. He had sweated in worse conditions for less money. The Yeneth champion stood perfectly still, its exoskeleton apparently designed for temperature regulation. It looked unbothered. 5 minutes passed. Second environment. Extreme cold. The temperature plummeted to -20. Ethan's breath frosted. His fingers started going numb. He began doing small movements, keeping blood flowing, a trick he had learned during survival training on Europa. The cold was bad,
But the cold wasn't personal. The cold didn't care if you lived or died, which meant you could outlast it through spite alone. The Yeneth champion's movement slowed slightly, its insectoid biology less adapted to temperature extremes. Third environment, high gravity. Ethan felt the weight slam down on him like someone had dropped a building on his shoulders. 3 times Earth normal, maybe more. His knees buckled but held. His back screamed. He went down to one knee, then forced himself back up, because going down meant staying down. The Yeneth champion, built for strength, handled the gravity better but still showed strain. Fourth environment, toxic atmosphere. Gas hissed into the chamber, yellow-green and smelling like industrial solvent. Ethan's suit sealed automatically, switching to internal oxygen. He had maybe 40 minutes of air. The champion's biology apparently handled toxic atmospheres natively, because it showed no reaction whatsoever. This continued for an hour. Radiation exposure that made Ethan's suit alarms sing. Low oxygen that made his head pound. Sonic frequencies that felt like someone was using his brain as a drum. Each environment lasted 5 minutes, and each 5 minutes felt like an eternity. But here was the thing about Ethan Wu. He had spent 8 years in cargo haulers with environmental systems held together by duct tape and prayer. He had survived decompression scares, radiation leaks, toxic atmosphere breaches, and one memorable incident involving a cooling system that had somehow started heating instead. He had been cold, hot, poisoned, irradiated, and generally miserable for years. This was just a very expensive version of his daily life. The Yeneth champion, bred in perfect conditions, trained in optimal environments, had never experienced persistent, grinding discomfort. It had never had to choose between fixing the heat or eating for a week. It had never fallen asleep in high gravity because the alternative was staying awake. At the 90-minute mark, during the third cycle of extreme heat, the champion wavered. At 2 hours during toxic atmosphere exposure, it went down on one knee. At 2 hours and 17 minutes, it collapsed entirely. The arbiter's voice. Yeneth champion has lost consciousness. Human champion victorious. Trial 3 concluded. The environmental chamber powered down. The doors opened. Medical teams rushed in to tend to the champion. Ethan walked out under his own power, mostly because his legs had forgotten how to stop moving, stumbled up the stairs to the arena floor, and immediately sat down. Adrian was there, along with what appeared to be half the Concordance diplomatic corps, and several beings with recording equipment. "You won," Adrian said, like he couldn't quite believe it. "I survived," Ethan corrected. "There's a difference." The Yeneth delegation approached, their chittering now subdued. The champion, revived and apparently functional, stood before Ethan. When it spoke, the translator rendered its words with something that might have been respect. "You are a strange warrior. Your strength is insufficient. Your tactics are bizarre. Your endurance is unexpected." "Thanks," Ethan said. "The Yeneth collective concedes this conflict. The mining rights are yours. We have learned something today about human warfare philosophy." "What's that?" "That perhaps we have been preparing for the wrong kind of combat." The delegation retreated. The arbiter chimed official conclusion of hostility. Adrian signed approximately 17 documents confirming the treaty terms. The crowd dispersed, various species arguing about what they had just witnessed. Ethan received his payment authorization, 50,000 credits, signing bonus, 200,000 win bonus, lifetime diplomatic immunity, and a Concordance pension that would pay out monthly for the rest of his natural life. "What are you going to do now?" Adrian asked. "Buy a bar, somewhere with gravity. Never haul cargo again." Ethan stood, his body protesting every movement. "What about you?" Adrian looked at the data tablet in his hands, which displayed another stack of diplomatic documents requiring his signature. "I should probably read these before I sign them." "Probably," Ethan agreed. They both knew he wouldn't. 3 weeks later, Ethan opened a bar on Mars called the Neutral Ground. Above the counter, mounted in a place of honor, was a Yeneth combat medal that made an excellent bottle opener. He never told customers where it came from, and he never accepted diplomatic calls. Adrian Holt remained Earth's ambassador to the Concordance. He hired an assistant, whose entire job was to read documents before he signed them. It helped, but not as much as anyone hoped. The Yeneth collective updated their warrior training protocols to include tolerance for psychological irritation and endurance in suboptimal conditions. They never challenged humanity again, partly out of honor, partly out of concern that humans might send someone even more annoying. The Concordance updated their war protocols to include a new clause, human unpredictability factor. It didn't explain what that meant. Nobody wanted to try to explain what that meant. And somewhere in the bureaucratic machinery of galactic civilization, lost among millions of other documents, was Form 347, subsection 12, paragraph 94, the declaration of war that had started everything. It remained on file as a reminder that the galaxy's most elaborate systems of checks and balances could be undone by one hungover diplomat with signing authority and a really bad morning. The bartender who won a war poured drinks and never mentioned it. The diplomat who started it kept signing forms and hoped for the best, and humanity continued stumbling through the cosmos, proving that sometimes the greatest strength was just being too stubborn and annoying to quit. The galaxy, sophisticated and ancient, learned to watch its paperwork more carefully. Some lessons, after all, were best learned through experience. Even if that experience involved a cargo hauler with bad knees talking an unbeatable warrior into unconsciousness. Somewhere the universe laughed, then filed it in triplicate,